Welcome to Directly Correct, a Peatlands podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Dr. Serena Huang, founder of Data with Serena.
Thanks to our sponsors, Lightcast. The world is full of talent data, but more data can lead to more questions, uncertainty, and stagnation as organizations sift through it to figure out what's fact from what's fiction. Lightcast talent intelligence platform answers your most difficult workforce questions to drive meaningful business results. With more than 20 years of experience as MC in Burning Glass, Lightcast accelerates your work, bringing together hundreds of billions of vetted, constantly updated data points and incredible insights to drive strategic talent decisions. Your organization can tap into the deepest open repository of skills, supply, and demand data in the world to transform your hunches into a skills-based future for your organization. Lightcast's flexible solution, used by 67 of the Fortune 100, can integrate your own data, be guided by in-house talent experts, and give you the tools and confidence to explore it for yourself. To learn more, book a demo at lightcast.io. All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization.
I saw a family from Louisiana Tech outside of the Tower of London.
Really?
Yeah, this guy had older dude. He had a Louisiana Tech backpack, and it had seen some time. You know, it's like it'd been around for a while. And he calls to his sons like, "Hey, Brian, whatever he said. So we got some Louisiana Tech people here." Because I was like, "Hey, what's up, Louisiana Tech?" And yeah, they're like, "Oh my God, last type of person we'd like to see here."
Yeah, it's I mean, it's not. It's a rare sighting when you go far away and you see people from where you're from, and you're not even from there. I don't know. What was you mentioned earlier, like you have like your go-to spots that you try to hit up when you go back. Is that activities? Is it food? Is it art? Like, what is it?
A little of all of it. So as far as food, I like the Alchemist. I like the Duck and Waffle. Those are both sort of in like the Liverpool station area. And it's just so beautiful. Like you mentioned earlier, like got to go to the Tower of London, got to go see the Tower Bridge, just because like they're iconic. I'll typically like make like a circle walk, and it's quite a long walk, but over to like Borough Market, over to like the Anchor Pub over there. And then like that kind of like takes you over towards the Millennial Wheel. Then of course cross the bridge up to Big Ben, go see the Abbey. If you want to go see Buckingham Palace, that's over there too. Through Soho. Then you have like Covent Garden. It's all beautiful. And then back through the city. And it's just like such a great walking city. Like so much to see. I love it so much.
Like every time I go to someplace like that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why people want to live here, right?
Yeah,
I probably can't afford it, but like, I get it. Like, yeah, I see it.
It'd be fun for a while. I
could check it out.
Like if you get outside the city, like you go over to. Did you ever watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I watched the first season, maybe some of the second.
They were stationed. I think it's called Richmond Green, which is sort of. If you're familiar, like kind of by Fulham, what west in between Heathrow and the city.
Really, I always assumed they were way out there because they kind of portrayed it as a really small town.
No, it's not. It's not terribly far. I mean, like once again, you take a subway that far, or the tube, as it were. But gorgeous, stunning area, and I'm sure you're still paying out the nose, what have you.
Yeah,
but like I go on.
It does look cool on the show. I'll give him that.
I found a new love and respect for Manchester and Liverpool. Like it grew on me.
In what ways?
Manchester, it's like both of them. I mean, they're both like kind of very old cities, so like they're very compact and very walkable, right? Ironically, like if I had to like name a city that Manchester reminded me of, it might be even like Dallas. No, not saying like it looks like it or anything like that, but just sort of like the attitude and like sort of like the way certain things look. But definitely, there's more people out and about in Manchester. And Liverpool is very similar, except much calmer scene, which is appreciated as well, right?
Yeah, I think I mean, I think there's like urban, UK, and then there's rural UK, and I think I always kind of like resonated with the rural UK and like the rolling fields and just I don't know. I always felt very serene compared to where I grew up, which was just flat, just and a
With
bunch of like crops being grown.
like a big paper mill, just like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, it smells like home.
yeah, it smells like garbage.
I miss like how the paper mill smell would like blow into rust in Louisiana, and you'd be like, "Yep, yep, they're cooking it up today, baby. They're
I
doing it."
I think you're the first person who's ever said that. I don't know.
Like I use the word "miss" very loosely, clearly.
Yeah, I think it's more you miss the funness of being able to talk about that kind of thing. But hey Serena, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, of
I
course.
think I think you're located in Chicago. Do you have any kind of like interesting things that are idiosyncratic about the city that you like?
Other than most people here don't actually like deep dished pizza.
Oh
Ooh,
snap!
starting out
Snap!
hot. All right, let's
Coming in
get
hot.
into it.
I might get attacked, but it's okay.
Well, you can only eat one slice at a time, right? You eat one slice, like,
Yeah,
damn, I'm
exactly.
I'm
Maybe
done for a
half.
week.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well,
Uh,
it's funny you say that. When I was at PsyOp, and a friend of mine who's a friend of the podcast, we were sitting at the table and they had ordered a deep dish pizza, and they just crushed it. They ate the whole
really?
thing. I
Damn.
was so impressed. It
Oh
was
my
like a
God.
little like 100-pound girl eating a whole deep dish pizza by herself. I was like, wow, this is
Wow.
like a sight to be seen.
Do
Yes.
it.
I hope that was on video somewhere. Or maybe she was very hungover. I don't know.
It was early in the conference, so I'll give her a good jail-free
Okay,
card there.
okay. Well, you never know. Yeah, it's supposed to be a really good cure for that.
Well,
Oh,
Serena,
yeah, it'd soak it up perfectly, right? That's
Mhm.
perfect psyop food.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Scott and I were just talking about some of our travels, and I know you've been traveling a lot recently. Where have you been to?
Uh, I've actually not done as much this year. Like I've been really focused on going to places where I can stay a little bit longer, so I'm not constantly at airports.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I've done a lot of New York, California this year, which has been nice. I think Charlotte was the other place I went to. Yeah, but I think next week will be my fifth time in New York this year or something ridiculous. So
I guess
um,
that's better than like a typical consultant, which is like Sheboygan, Wisconsin, just in
right,
the middle of
yes.
nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of the best things about starting my own business is like since I was a consultant early on in my career, I don't get to I don't I get to say no to those things now. So
Hmm.
like you're in the middle of nowhere, I will meet you on Zoom. So if it's not a place that I want to go to, yeah, yeah, and yeah. I do have like trips to Asia coming up, so that will and Caribbean, I think. So that will be interesting. Yeah.
Since you're a global traveler, let me hit you with a very controversial opinion that the more wheels a person has, as far as luggage or what they got going on, the more problematic they are. Right? Like you see someone with a backpack, no wheels.
Absolutely.
Preferably a little backpack. And you're like, all right, I can deal with this person. If they got a neck roll, a little headrest, like I mean, that's a different story. They're gonna be a problem. But
Yeah,
then like the two-wheeled luggage, like, okay, that's fine. The
indeed.
four-wheel where like they're holding it to their side, that's big time problem. Right? Because that's the way people hold it. Now they're taking up like the entire space and like, I don't know. You see like a stroller that's got like 8 wheels. You're like, oh,
Oh
holy
my
cow.
God.
This is gonna be a
It's just,
thing.
yes, I agree. And I have I I've managed to pack really well over the years.
Yeah.
And because of all the airlines that lost my luggages early on, like before, air tags and whatnot was available. So I'm basically now able to pack like 10 days worth of clothes for international travel in a carry-on.
I love
So
it.
yeah. That's a real traveler. Well, I think you started out in consulting, didn't you, Serena?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, you've got your
yeah,
flyer
and
miles for sure.
right, and then like of course, when I was a consultant, I would always get paired up with people who travel with like their own hair dryer, their own hairspray. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, these are things that the hotel has, or you can go to a CVS. But no, we must wait forever for the bag to come. And yeah, so I
Or
was
the people with that like bag that's like a 3 foot by 5 foot. Like it's like, what do you have in there?
right,
Like, what
right,
did you
yeah,
leave
and
behind? Actually,
yeah, and they're like, but the check bag is free. Why won't you? It's like you're leaving money on the table. Like, no, but time is money, so I'm
time
not
is
leaving
money.
money on the table at all. So yeah, yeah, but it took me since I started traveling by myself really early, probably before it was like legally okay, but whatever. So I was like
Calm it
stranded
down.
at so many airports by myself, didn't speak English, and yeah, I learned to carry the essentials with you at all times, and have local currency if you're traveling internationally. All the basic survival skills. So
Yeah,
I
Just-
think I think we're learning that stream is my spirit animal call. I think that's what we're learning
yeah.
here.
I think
yeah.
we could talk for an hour, or Scott could talk for an hour with you. But I do actually have one question. Does local currency matter as much now as it used to? I remember that was a big thing in the past, but I don't think it
Mm,
matters anymore most places, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on the country you go to for sure. So like for example, when I was in Europe, I feel like I got by with Apple Pay on my phone for
mhm.
for a long time. But then in certain countries, if there's like any instability politically, you might want to, find some local currency just in case.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I'll say this, Serena. I did something I normally don't do. Inviting you on the podcast. I had heard you speak somewhere else. I heard you on David Green's podcast,
Oh,
and you were
okay.
talking about careers in people analytics. And you said some stuff, and I was like screaming at the phone, just be like, "Yes, all right, finally somebody's saying this stuff." And so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today, because I mean, I remember when we met through Deb at Talreos years ago, and
Yeah.
I think both of you and I were probably considered meek at the time, and like now, now look at us. But
Started from the
I don't
bottom,
know.
now you're at the top, right?
Yeah,
Is this when we say we've made it or
I,
something?
I don't think that's. I don't think no victory laps are going to be had today. But the thing I see is you have gone through and had such a interesting career path, and you're edging into areas that I think most people analytics folks haven't gone before. And so, can you talk at all about what does having a career path in people analytics mean right now to you, and where do we go from here?
Where do we or where do I go from here?
Well,
Or both?
maybe both, because I
Yes.
mean, I think it takes somebody who's kind of has to be the first one through the gate. Sometimes gets to make commentary for all of us to hear, because I think you're doing some really interesting stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've definitely cherished every role that I've had in people analytics because I got to see people analytics grow up and mature. Right, like when I first got to GE, that was my first workforce analytics job. It wasn't even called people analytics. That term wasn't on Google at all at the time. so so then fast forward a few years, I was like hiring data scientists, and it was just like unthinkable at the time. I thought when I first joined people analytics, we were going to be working with Excel forever. and
Mhm.
and thankfully moving out of Excel into fancier things like Ultrix, Tableau, and whatnot. It was great to see the importance to leadership team for me. Like a lot of people say, hey, what does it mean to be mature in people analytics? And a lot of people talk about the skill set on the team, how big the team is, and I think it's like, what problems do you actually solve, and what problems are you, whose problem are you solving for? That's more telling than what tools you actually use to get there.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, it was really important to keep learning. And one of the criteria I have for switching jobs was like, I need to be able to get to do something I've not done before. It has to be new. So oftentimes you'll see industry change, for example, and getting to work on different business problems. And of course, when COVID hit, being at a food company became one of the most difficult jobs. And we got to think about employee health and safety for a large food company during COVID. That's not something that I'll probably ever get to do again. Like, knock on wood, no more pandemic, right?
Right.
But it was one of those moments that just got me thinking about all the different parts of my career where it's called it right place, right moment, right time, but also having the chance to learn and do different things. And yeah, so I think for me, like the learning and seeing the really niche domain grow was very exciting. And then over time, getting to mentor other people. I'm sure both of you do that a ton now. Again, when I started, I was like the junior analyst, and I needed a lot of coaching and mentoring. And now being able to give back, that's been a lot of fun. So where do we go from here, and where do I go? Like I call myself like an accidental entrepreneur and accidental creator slash influencer, whatever word is okay to use these days. And I wasn't one of those people who grew up and said, I'm gonna like be a CEO of my business. But like during the pandemic, we all got a lot of free time, right, on our hands, and I got to do some rethinking as well. Either of you read Adam Grant's book, Think Again, by chance?
I have not.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah,
I
very
read the beginning of it. I never read full books, but yeah, it was good.
yeah. Well, you get the gist.
Cole's read all the covers.
Just the cover, right?
And I'm talking about the spine.
Yeah, so he talks about rethinking, and I thought about that a lot, like what could be next for me after so many people analytics roles, right? So I started asking myself questions, and of course, I got professional help as well. I hired a executive coach. I also have therapists, and both like personal, professionally, you get help. And then I think just like a lot of reading as well to figure out what I wanted to do. And I realized that the things that bring me a lot of joy was speaking on stage. And it was like the knowledge sharing piece that perhaps because I didn't get to be a professor. So after my PhD, that part of me just like never died. And then also like the creativity part, right? Some sort of content creation, whether it's writing or some of you might have seen me sing and play piano on LinkedIn as well. So those are hobbies, and I paint as well. And so I'm like, how can I create a life where I can do more of what brings me joy and also is helpful to the world? So I decided that I was going to give it a try. And I basically thought I'm going to take 6 months away from corporate, and if nobody hires me to speak or train people on data analytics in 6 months, I don't make a whole, any money at all. I'll go back. And fortunately, it's been a blessing that I've been busy, and yeah, and so I've continued on. It's been a little over a year now.
I love that sentiment so much that you identified what brings you happiness and try to maximize that. You've set yourself up for success by all the various different industries you've worked in, all the different companies, as well as like all the reading. It's like we see this quite a bit in the podcast of like the most successful people have just a variety of interest and like a variety of inputs, right?
Yes, and I found that experimenting has been really important for me as a person, and it's something that I encourage others to do, like within whatever space that you can,
Yeah.
because it's like gathering data, but on yourself. And for me, a lot of times I go into a new job, and I learn as much about myself from what I don't like as what I do like. And you sort of, like, next time you don't do that again. um, and there's nothing more, nothing better than entrepreneurship to let you experiment. So within the first 6 months, I had done a variety of things, from certainly the normal speaking to giving a workshop on data analytics, storytelling, to as far as tech companies hire me to host a wellness retreat for their stressed out employees. I was asked to be a fitness model. I mean, like, it was just like a variety of things that if I was, still the head of people analytics somewhere, probably would not have happened.
I want to see your CV. I mean, it's got painting, it's got
Yes,
fitness
right.
model.
I have 10 versions. Which one do you want to see? I'm always ready to customize it. Yeah, and so, like, from those things, I get to learn what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, and also that changes too. I think it's not like, let's say you really like building models 10 years ago. That doesn't mean you have to keep liking it. If you don't, move on to something else.
I think
And
it's
like,
healthy. It's healthy,
yeah,
like, to be to reach ambition, right? You wouldn't want someone to be happy all the time. Then no one to be
right.
happy, right?
That would be
You need to
strange.
change your attitude every so often. Change your
Yeah.
interest. It's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing that I admire, Serena, is, as far as I can tell, I'm sure there's other people out there that I'm not aware of, but you're the first person I've been able to see who's truly made that solopreneur transition in people analytics, that and done it successfully. I think people have tried it out and then kind of gone back in. And so, can you tell us a little bit, like, what is Data with Serena, and then, like, what are the, like, pros and cons of, staying in corporate America versus going out and doing your own thing? And tell us a little bit about that. And does even things like generative AI, do they even play a role in this space at all? Are you even thinking about that or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Data with Serena is a speaking training company. So I partner with different organizations that want help with data analytics in general. So I really speak to a couple of audiences from my experience, because, like I said, I grew up as the analyst, right? And then got to be a data executive. So the pain points I've seen when I was in both roles is, like, as an analyst, you want to show all your hard work, right? You want to show how you got there, how messy the data was, how you clean it up, and the executive does not care. Right? So they just want you to get to a point, get to a recommendation, convince me to do something. Otherwise, they're bored. So I speak to a lot of analysts in the people space and outside. How do you actually tell a story that's convincing? So not just you can keep your job, but hopefully get promoted quickly because you're influential with data. And then the other piece is the other audience is the executives, right? Sitting there impatiently, looking at their Apple Watch, wondering when they can go do the next thing because they're bored by the data in front of them, not knowing what to do with it. And my challenge to them, being on that side of the table, is like, hey, what if I can stay more curious? What if I can ask different questions? Because I have been in the other seat before. I know why this person is telling me about how messy the data is, right?
A
What
lot
if I
of
ask
Mullen
different
Hovis distance talk, right? Little QQ
Yes.
plot.
Yeah, right.
Good
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
buzzword.
So yeah, so like, if they can do that, then it makes it also a better experience for the analyst who's on the other side. Yeah, and then I think training, I've been a little bit removed from some of the larger conferences I usually go to, because I've been working in the dark, gosh, on a Gen AI workshop that I've been giving to organizations. And gosh, it's in demand for sure. A lot
Yeah.
of organizations are now using Gen AI, but they don't have a training department that is ready to deliver any Gen AI training, right? Yeah, sure, you can tell them like, oh, go take this course online. But ultimately, we know that's not what makes someone want to learn something or change their behavior.
Right.
It needs to be embedded in their day-to-day, otherwise nothing will change. So I've been giving workshops on how to use Gen AI to boost productivity for employees in different ways. So that's been a lot of fun, and it makes me think about how that changes how we do our work as well in people analytics. Like, think about all the survey vendors right? Years ago that they showed us AI that didn't really work, that's supposed to do sentiment analysis, that was barely a keyword search of some sort. And now it's like, no, we don't need that anymore. We can actually get access to similar tools or better tools for free. So where does that leave both the vendors and also the people who used to spend hours and hours crunching through the comments and numbers in the survey to present insights? So it makes me think about how can we bring more value to work and use technology like AI to help us.
There seems to be like a rapacious appetite for companies to use AI and Gen AI as well. How are they using it? Because there seems to be some confusion. They want to use it, but how do you apply it? Because I mean, like what I've seen is like, we'll come up with a chat bot, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, we've had
Oh my
chat
gosh.
bots for 15, 20 years, right?
Yeah, just what we need, another freaking chatbot. Like, come on, hit us with the good stuff, Serena.
Yeah.
Yes, no more chatbots, and I'm guilty of that because I did build a chatbot. But
They can be useful. They can be useful, but
it's okay.
the final answer cannot be a chat bot every single time,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah, so like one of so I think three areas I've seen companies start to use Gen AI a lot, whether it's a combination of employees or leadership really interested in using it themselves. It's the three C's. The first C is in communication. So think about emails, right? If you think about the sales team that have to create emails, you can essentially use data to find what's been successful and automate that. It's not super new, but now it's available where on an individual level, you can actually do it on your own. And then collaboration, right? The next C is collaboration. Meetings are super time consuming to prep for, to summarize, to have follow-up plans. All of that can be done by AI now. Like Zoom has a assistant, and so do other vendors that offer them. So thinking about the prep, that can cut down a lot of time. And then the last one is culture building. The last C for culture building. I've been seeing a lot of HR leaders starting to lean in on Gen AI for like, hey, how can we brainstorm a team building activity, right? We don't have to go to the most creative person or event planners. We can actually just brainstorm using Gen AI. And also, again, back to the surveys, right? Like the analytics can be so much faster now. I used to meet lots of executives who will proudly tell me, I read through all of the comments by myself, like all 20, 30, 50,000 of them.
Yeah, like it's a rite of passage or something.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Right. And I'm sure you both heard that too. And now you can still say that, but hopefully, hopefully you don't just remember the last few that you read, but actually use some sort of tool to create a recommendation for what to do next. So like none of those things are chatbots. It's really application of something that used to be really time consuming and tedious and boring. But now we can do it faster and better, or sometimes we don't even need to touch it. And I think there's a gap in the other side that maybe hasn't received as much attention. Is like, yes, there's a lot of training and all this, but ultimately employees are really afraid about one thing, which is, am I going to lose my job? And very few leaders are talking about that. And when I started to talk to small to medium sized company CEOs over the past few months, everyone is telling me like, I'm working on this. I'm working on this behind the scenes with my C-suite team, and we've got a plan. We just haven't communicated the plan. In the meantime, the employees are like, hello, is anyone going to tell us what's going on? Am I going to lose my job? I guess I'll take some courses and maybe build a chatbot. In the
Leave people hanging. It's always a good idea, right?
yeah, yes, that's so I think it's not just the training, it's also the communication on what our new workforce plan is going to be and where the employees will be, whether or not they'll be part of the future organization and in what capacity.
Yeah.
Well, give the people what they want, Serena. And by the people, I mean me, which is what would it take? Like you're doing, the yoga, the fitness, the travel, the conferences, mental health, like a lot of variety of different things. Do you think you'll ever come back into a people analytics role? Do you want to? And I'm just asking, frankly, from my personal perspective, I didn't kind of go solo entrepreneur, but when it like in a very entrepreneurial company and then kind of come back into like a more traditional role, like, could you come back? Would you come back? Is that possible? Have you set sail beyond people analytics? What does that look like?
Oh my gosh, that's like the $1 million question. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would come back because, like I said, I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and I hope that all the aspiring solopreneurs don't call me a sellout here. But the truth is, I am young-ish. and there's just a lot of uncertainty, and I know at this point what I like and what I don't like, and I know there's a lot of things about corporate that I had enjoyed and I still do now working with corporate clients, right? And one of those things is being surrounded by smart people and building a team and developing them. That's harder to do as a solopreneur. Like, yes, I'm still mentoring, for example, in like local startup tech communities here in Chicago, but it's just not the same, right? It's not the same, and building a separate community can be challenging. And yeah, so I think there's some things that are just not replaceable. But I also think that people analytics is going to be in a different place because of so many things happening in the environment. I wonder a lot about where it should sit in the organization. And this is
Where should it sit?
Huh? I think. All right, we're gonna be provocative.
Let's do it.
I think it needs to be part of a enterprise business analytics function and outside of HR. The reason being, of course, and I say this from experience. Right? I'm not saying this out of out of left field here. I have been part of organizations where I was in HR, and then at some point I wasn't in HR. So when I wasn't in HR, that means I got to share the engineering, data science resources with the rest of the company, right? And that means I don't have to, fight for the people analytics data scientist headcounts or people analytics data engineer headcount. So those are really hard to get approved. When you're part of the enterprise data analytics team, it's much easier. And so I got to see the benefit of that, talent mobility within a larger organization as well. And perhaps because I'm interested in multiple things, right? Like at one point, I was working on a logistic problem, like optimizing routes for a truck. And and it was like, and then I realized that this is not a problem I'm interested in solving. So I got off that project. But if I was always in HR, I would never had exposure to those other problems. And I think, to me, data science, AI, all of these are tools that help us solve business problems. So to get exposure to other problems in a company is very useful for all talent involved. And think about the other way, right? For supply chain analytics people to learn about people analytics. How wonderful would that be? So we are not just on some weird island of like, hey, these are the nerds in HR that are at this conference. So,
and
I think Yeah, because with the maturity of AI as well, that we're going to see a lot of productivity boost, which might mean leaner teams in some cases, right? I think it's very natural. So if you are part of a data analytics COE of some sort, it might be beneficial. So yeah, I know a lot of CHROs will probably fight me on this, and that's okay.
I'm curious about, like, say, middle management, specifically in people analytics. Like, I could see them going away. I could see the organizations getting flatter and their roles being wildly diminished because there's like fewer administrative tasks, all that sort of stuff.
Are you thinking in general or in people analytics?
Yeah, I suppose in general, actually.
Yeah. I think it depends.
Good
So
IO
they will
answer.
say, yeah, I think it depends because like managers touch so many people, right? Like if you're a middle manager, then if you're not there anymore, like does that mean the VP or SVP now get to manage directly, you know,
Yeah, they
50
wouldn't
or
want to do
100
that.
people? And so like
Yeah.
I think the span of control might be out of control in that sense, but maybe it'll be fine. But that like we're seeing studies that show managers have a huge impact on employees' mental health, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as much as their significant other, and actually more than doctors and therapists. So, so I wonder what will happen if that middle manager is
Yeah.
gone. Um,
Like I don't think we've talked about it on here, not that I can remember, Scott, but there's been a few of these articles that have come out recently about like the hidden value of middle management. And I always see middle management as one of these like pendulums that swings back and forth where organizations for few years say they want to be really flat, and then people rediscover the value of middle management, and then they
yes,
put in layers, but then they get too many layers, and so they're like, we need to be
right.
flatter. And so it just ends up being this pendulum. I will say, kind of going back to what you were saying, Serena, on the should people analytics be in some centralized function. I think I would be hard pressed to make an argument against that if HR it didn't eat last. But a lot of times when it does eat last, it forces again the pendulum there to swing from, well, I guess we need to re-centralize some of these resources back in
Right.
HR just so HR gets its needs met. And
Yeah.
so I think both of those, it's like you've got to find the right balance, I guess is the right
Yeah.
way I would put it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think, Cole? You have been in different organizations. Where do you think it should sit?
Well, I think out of necessity, especially when it's first beginning, it needs to sit in HR. I think as it matures, it could potentially go a variety of other places. Like I've
Yeah.
even seen people, I think these people are crazy, but I've seen people say it should report like to the CEO or something like that. I think that's pretty radical. But I think as long as it's as close to the value that it produces as possible is probably the ideal position to be. And I think one of the things as a field, we worry so much about like structuring it to say like what's the ideal way, like your structure, org design or structure or operating model, when in reality I think it gets more applied to like what is your industry, what is your focus area. And so like I was talking to somebody the other day who was like literally their people analytics team was doing work for the customers of that organization. And I was like, that's a very different model than just giving people talent acquisition reports in HR. Right. And so I would imagine that team should sit somewhere wildly different than you would if you were just starting out. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah, for sure. And I think depends on who you put in the seat as well to lead the people analytics organization, because it will be really hard to fight for resources when when you're the only one from HR and no one understands people analytics at all. So
Yeah.
especially in those beginning stages, like you said.
When you heard it here, it could be Serena that you put in that position. So she's
Right.
open to a guy. No, I'm putting words in her mouth. But Serena, are you
Yeah.
ready to do some confusion matrix with us?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
The confusion matrix.
Let's do it.
We're gonna use you as a guinea pig here, so buckle up. So I found this Reddit board called Recruiting Hell, and
Gosh.
a specific thread on it that just dealt with the wild questions that people were asked during the recruiting process. So I'm going to ask you some of these questions, see what your answer is. Okay. And
Okay.
if Cole likes your answer, he will provide you with a social media tile. So these are obviously ostensibly people were asked these questions, but I found them wildly interesting.
This is why
So,
no one likes the confusion matrix. It's like our most experimental part, and our guests like are like creepy crawly. It's like, oh god, you have to do this. But yeah, how about this, Serena? I'll answer the questions with you, because I didn't know this was coming either. So let's we'll both have some skin in the
All
game.
good.
yeah, I mean, we can all answer these questions. Okay, so the first one that someone was ostensibly asked: if you were in charge of a team of 10 people and all of them quit on the same day, what would you do? And they add a side note: bear in mind this job was an IC role, and the company was 10 people total. Some recruiter asked them this. What would you do if everyone quit on the same day?
I would be hyper literal and say, I guess now I'm a team of one.
I think I, at that point, would say, I hope I have a strong personal brand because I need to go do something else, possibly on my own.
Probably a lot of prioritization would take place very quickly, and hopefully some introspection as well, of like what's going on. All right, question 2: what Disney character best represents you?
What?
Someone was asked this.
Can't remember. Disney is what was that the Bambi? The
The what?
what the one that didn't their mother get shot in the beginning of the movie? It's like the most depressing part ever. Like I feel like I'm
Oh,
Bambi.
yeah.
You're Bambi?
Yeah.
You're Bambi?
Wait. Why are you Bambi?
Wow, this is breaking news. I love this.
Yeah.
Wait,
Wait, you got to give them the answer they're not expecting, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. You can't be like
Yeah.
Mickey, right?
Yeah.
we can always be Mickey. Oh my gosh.
Fantasia.
Oh,
Yeah.
Fantasia is a good one.
that is a good version of Mickey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with like the deep cut of the rooster from Robin Hood.
I don't know if I remember the rooster from Robin Hood.
He sings a song at the beginning. I just love him.
Okay.
Oh man, I would love to be Cinderella.
Oh, I love it.
There you go. See, leaned into it. There you go.
Third question someone was
If you're gonna
asked.
be a princess, just be a full one.
Yeah.
What is the best company you know, and what makes them great?
I'd say Data with Serena.
I was gonna say the same.
This is actually a legit question because they want to know if you're a good fit. I kind of like this.
I mean, you like have to say the company you're interviewing for, and you had to have done your research about why they're great. Like it's cleaning up flattery.
It's a hidden conscientiousness question, right?
And I think if I were asking that on purpose, which I wouldn't, I would follow up with, okay, I know you prep for that question, but really, what is, like, give me another one. So,
it's like my last job.
Right, there you go.
I miss my old company. Finally, what is your spirit animal?
Disney princess and spirit animal?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I think butterfly. Yes.
A butterfly.
I'm gonna go with butterfly because I feel like it's a good representation of like transformation, right? And change.
Literally, a prior company I work for used to make us put our spirit animals as our Slack photos on Slack. And so I started out with a platypus and then I changed it to a black swan. So those are the two that I had.
I'll go with the kid I once saw at Chuck E. Cheese playing on his phone while all the other kids are having fun. He's just sitting there. It's a pizza place, anyway.
That's pretty good.
That's it. That's all we got. That's all we got for that. You survived.
We'll see if this confusion matrix segment makes it back for another appearance. But Serena, you want to do some nerdery with us?
Sure.
The nerdery. All right, fantastic. Let's see what we got.
Where do
We've
you want to
kind of been
start?
on the theme. We've been on the theme today of kind of career advice, and so I wanted to pull up this article by another friend of the podcast, Vin Vashista. I think he's actually going to join us later this year. He has the most valuable career advice isn't what you'd expect. And I'll kind of distill down this article to just the point he makes, which is be able to know your value and be able to prove it. And then he gives a bunch of examples like how do you do that as a leader? How do you do that as an individual contributor? How do you do that as an informal leader in the company and that type of thing? But he says a lot of people focus too much of their effort on because they can't show their value on trying to prove it by being really reactive and just like really over trying to help their customers and stakeholders. And so I wanted to put this out there to you guys. First of all, like, what do you think about that concept of being able to prove your value and being able to quantify it literally, sometimes even with dollars and cents? Or do you have any kind of like unconventional career advice that you'd like to share with anyone? I don't know. Feel free to go either way.
This is a common thing that people say
Yeah.
on your resume. Put numbers in there, right? Like be
Yep.
able to say
Right.
we served 50,000 customers and this dashboard got 42% increase in productivity, right?
Is that boring or is it helpful?
Well, I mean, it's quantifiable, right? Like you'd probably want to go with the person that helped 42,000 versus the person that helped 42.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like Vin Vashista is like my Ethan Mullock. So this guy always brings the Ethan Mullock articles. I'm always bringing his because I think he just does really good work. And how do you quantify data work? Because he's not just a people analytics guy. He's like a more pure data scientist type and an AI expert. And he's always saying like, how do you bring dollars and cents to show the value of his work? And I just think it kind of like to the point about pendulum swinging from earlier. I think we're at a point in time where people analytics being able to quantify its value, that pendulum has swung very high to there's been points in time in our history where things like, desk research or just pure research or like just knowing things and being able to uncover insights, that was of a very high premium. And I think we've swung away from that for a little while to value. But again, that pendulum will probably swing back at some point. What's your perspective, Serena?
I think it's always important to show your value. It goes without saying, but I think about the prioritization conversations in companies that happen a lot, right? Like you can bring in your impact cost matrix or what have you, but at the end of the day, like as an economist by training, very early on, I always ask a question of like, what is the how much more money will this project bring the company? Can we quantify that? And if we can't, I don't care how many users we got on the dashboard. If it's not making the company another cent, we shouldn't do it because it's a waste. And I think like at one point, my organization was using that kind of metric to actually prioritize whether or not you get to do a project. So whether or not you get resources, you have to prove that it does have either top line or bottom line impact, and not through like, oh, reduction of turnover or improvement and engagement, satisfaction. Not that, but the actual dollar impact. And it's very hard, right? It's especially for people analytics. And I think it was really good mental training for me that set me up for success, because then afterwards, I got to tougher environments where I had to fight really hard to get budget. And Cole, I think you've seen me hire a bunch of people over the past years, and it took a lot of work to. And everyone's like, how did you get the headcount? It's through those exercises of like, yes, we will increase the revenue. This is how we're going to do it directly. And it takes work. So I think absolutely showing the value is really important. But the other piece that I don't think people talk as much about is you need to know how you're perceived, right? You can quantify your impact all you want. If everyone thinks that you are not good at your company, you are not getting a pay increase. You're not getting promoted. Forget it. Okay. You can have a huge personal brand on social media as the thought leader, but if people around you don't agree, then that's it for you. So I think one thing that I've learned early on is to ask for that feedback. Find, like, have you read the book Radical Candor? It's like,
Mhm.
find people who will give you that radical candor. It's like, hey, you might think you come across as confident, but we actually think you're pretty obnoxious, right? Find the people who are willing to tell you that to your face, because, well, hopefully you're getting that throughout your career before you got on a big stage and you didn't know you are a huge jerk. So I think, yeah, showing value but also seeking feedback so you know how you're perceived is really important.
Like, to your earlier point, this is why people analytics need to be focused on business related problems, right? Sitting in the business, what have you. And it's also the reason why, like, say, DEI or well being sort of trainings have like a real problem showing
Yes.
their value too. Like,
Yeah.
they're implicitly
Yeah.
difficult to measure beyond, say, like employee engagement.
Right.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's another
At
topic
least
we
the way
haven't
they're
really
currently
covered.
structured.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been this whole, I remember McKinsey made these big reports on, DEI and the business impact of it. And I think there's some economists, actually, I can't remember where they're affiliated from, that have done some studies recently, like really criticizing McKinsey's methodology. I'm like, oh gosh, what's going on here? So I don't
That's
know.
just academia.
Yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think those two areas for sure, in my experience, are really short staffed in terms of like having good data, and
Mm-hmm.
then also the resources to analyze the data and do something with it. Well-being, it's, traditionally sits in what benefits department, right? In a
Yeah.
lot of places, which is kind of odd. Not traditionally, but now that it's so important, everyone seems burned out. I would imagine it's shifted a little bit, but still it's very much tied to, like, we'll offer a program and then you will feel
Mhm.
instantly better, or we'll teach you how to
Come
do
to our
yoga.
1 hour training. You're gonna
Yeah,
be sick.
exactly. And I've heard so many organizations that they're asking me, like, "Hey, Serena, we offer this free yoga, but no one wants to come. What's up with that? Can you help us?" And you talk to the employees, they're like, "We don't even have time to eat. We're not going to take up on your free yoga." So
Yeah, there's
yeah,
table stakes, right? You
yeah,
got to get certain things right before you can engage in like the higher order
yeah,
yoga
exactly.
classes.
Right. Yeah. So I think those, and that's why I was focusing on those two elements in my latest article. But I'm curious if you have seen this in your own work as well. One thing I did notice in like designing and implementing large surveys is that there's a link between feeling included and like you belong and a sense of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems so intuitive. Like, if you
Yeah.
constantly feel like you're excluded from all the decisions people are making at work, you're not gonna feel too good. but
Yeah.
but yeah, but like what I have observed is that companies will create this, silos, right? Like DEI is in one department, and then you have well-being, God knows where it sits, and then they don't talk to each other. They just constantly pump out programs at their
Yeah.
employees. And um yeah, and I've seen that connection so closely. And I wonder if it's well designed with intention and data and AI to help, could we create a thriving workplace where people feel like they belong and they feel well?
Well, like you
Yeah,
said earlier, managers have a disproportionate impact on employees' well-being, and like as you also mentioned, like you miss like the sort of like camaraderie of just being in the office. Like, these are your friends; you see them for 8 hours a
yeah,
day, right?
right.
You
Yeah,
get a lot of like social benefit just from interacting with folks, just like this, right? And
yes,
I wish like DEI sort of programs would go into sort of like more measurable sort of advice. And I'm not saying that they don't or not all
Mhm.
of
yeah,
them do or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, if you see a coworker that hasn't talked in a meeting, ask them to talk.
yeah,
If you have a new idea, go ping someone in a different department that you don't talk to. You can people that don't look like you, all this sort of stuff that is easily measurable, say through network analytics,
yeah,
that would really get to the heart of inclusion and bringing people together, sharing ideas, because that's the whole name of the game, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to see. So I'd always really thought of like the inclusion and even the belonging skills as being very much in the behavioral space of things. Of like,
Mhm.
how do you change people's behaviors to include them? I saw this really interesting presentation by Matt Harrison from Ericsson at People Analytics World, where he had taken basically a completely non-behavioral approach of like, can we just look at the demographic characteristics of a person and put them like plot them on a Cartesian plane against everyone else in their team or their organization and see how isolated they would be because their demographic characteristics are just different than everyone else's. I thought that was fascinating, and he called it like an isolation index, like how isolated you are.
As a measure of diversity in the organization, or
No,
like
as a measure of like a potential of why you might not be included because you're
Yeah.
isolated just based on a bunch of different factors about you. And
God, that feels
and the
like
other thing I loved
something.
about it is he was actually looking to the audience for feedback of like how could I improve this too, because but I thought it was like a completely like behavioral agnostic look at this, and I thought that is
Yeah.
fascinating. If you could combine behaviors with that type of methodology, you could probably find some really interesting stuff in the inclusion space.
It's
Yeah. I bet.
fascinating, but it's also really divisive. It sounds like I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm curious if either of you have seen a exercise. I can't remember the name, but essentially it's like you have everyone stand in a straight line. Let's say
Mhm.
like 10 of them in a team, and then you have them take a step forward if one of those, if they are one of those things. So for example, first one to go to college in a family,
Mhm.
Mhm.
like maybe have been in the military, maybe like born in a different country or speak multiple
Yeah.
language, whatever it is. And then you quickly see after like about 10 of these, you have a few people who are at the front who are really far away from everyone else. And I think it's in a similar sense from what you said, Cole, right? And it could be how you look, it could be how you grew up, it could be something
Yeah.
else.
I mean, it
And
could be as simple as like you're 25 and everybody on your team is 50,
yes.
right? You're probably pretty isolated. And
Yeah.
so it's like how do you quantify that? But if you included like multiple variables, I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fascinating.
It's
Um,
interesting. It's also like pointing out the fault lines and teams. I don't know. That feels I don't know what you do with that information, right?
well, I
Other being
think
like, oh, look at you, you're
Yeah,
different from
so the
everybody.
right. So the point is like I think that the point is to demonstrate that I guess not all of us have the same starting point, and that what people can relate to may be different. And so it depends on what you throw in there. It could be like very challenging things, like
Yeah,
having so challenging childhood and things like that. So
yeah,
it's meant to hopefully get people to be more empathetic and open their mind to things, and also things that people don't normally talk about, right? Like
Mhm.
things that you can't see.
hmm
It's not gender and things like that. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this person had gone through something difficult that make them potentially have different perspective when it comes to finances, or when it comes to promotions, when it comes to other things that we talk about at work. Yeah, yeah. But again, I'm not sure if that program was had a high ROI. I'll have to go back and ask them. But it was something that I know a lot of people feel like, wow, I learned something new today, and I didn't know this about my coworkers.
Well, I mean, speaking of a lack of empathy, you want to talk about our next article?
You want to do Dark Lords?
Yeah, let's do Dark Lord. It's a JAP article, and our homeboy Marcus Gerday's on it. He was absolutely fantastic on my PSYOP panel. He was wonderful.
Well,
So this one's,
can we pause there? What was he like in real life? 'Cause-
he was I would see him cruising around PSYOP, and like I thought he's like I was just trying to stay away because I thought he was very kind of
I mean,
not
he told
rude.
us point blank he doesn't like talking to people. So
He gave that impression, but like when he sat down at the panel and like we're all just kind of like shooting the shit before the panel started, he was affable, he was funny, he was great.
oh wow, okay.
Like yeah, like I was like, boy, this guy's gonna be like cold and like standoffish, but no, he was smiling. He got into it with someone in the crowd. That's a different story for a different day.
I feel like that was the moment he was waiting for. Sorry, this was a previous guest on the podcast, and it was Scott and I's kind of like one of our favorite episodes just because it was so wild.
It was wild.
Yeah.
But it's no wonder that he's on this article. Shall We Serve the Dark Lords? A meta-analytic review of psychopathy and leadership. So popular press commonly indicates that psychopathy is associated with leadership, and obviously this would be bad for the everyone below them. So the study aimed to clarify the prevalence of psychopathic tendencies among leaders because there's reconciling contradictory findings in the literature. And to be clear, we're talking about subclinical psychopathic traits. So we're talking about interpersonal dominance, impulsivity, and lack of empathy. Say people that don't want to stand in a long line and watch people walk back and forth and like learn new things. Anyway, so they covered 92 independent studies on psychopathy, and they found that there's a weak positive association with the likelihood of being perceived as a leader. The psychopathic tendencies have a weak positive association. There's a weak negative correlation between psychopathic tendencies and overall leadership effectiveness. Like, go wonder. Transformational leadership, psychopathic tendencies generally negatively impact transformational leadership. Once again, go figure. Men benefit more from leadership emergence and effectiveness from psychopathic tendencies than women. However, they do note that there could be social biases, or women do tend to display psychopathic traits in a different sort of way. And curvilinear effects. So higher psychopathic tendencies increase the chance of leadership emergence, but it's optimal at moderate levels of these traits. So it's not totally linear. It does tail off. So I know that's a lot to take.
The interesting part to me, because a lot of the relationships that you find with psychopathy and emergence, effectiveness, and transformational leadership, they seem pretty like, oh yeah, I expected to find that. The interesting thing was the curvilinear relationship. Like,
you need some of it.
Yeah. Like you need a little bit of it. You're not too much, not too hot, not too cold. So you can't be not a psychopath at all, and you can't be a complete psychopath. But you need I guess maybe a little Machiavellianism and a little bit of narcissism and a little bit of all this stuff to find some of these relationships. And again, the authors were very clear to say that these relationships were small. Relationships overall, but I guess there is a little bit of something there, and that was interesting.
Yeah. I don't think I'm super surprised, although I'm kind of glad that I found it's not as bad as maybe it's overhyped, right? The strong relationship, because it happens, right? Like, you hear some noise, and then everyone's talking about it. It suddenly becomes a real thing. But it's like, people say in the startup world, you have to be a little crazy and totally believe in your idea for it to work, right? Because you have to not give up and to be a successful entrepreneur as well. Like, I know there were lots of, some weeks I would go through a lot of rejections from clients and things will just like fall apart unexpectedly. And if I wasn't crazy enough to believe that the next week will be different, I wouldn't be here. And I think it's just like, it's a little bit of that characteristic of what makes someone successful, and then that they will keep doing that because they've had historic patterns of, hey, this worked for me.
Absolutely. We also learned that entrepreneurs are more likely to have the brain-eating parasite. What is it called?
Oh yeah, the cat piss one. What is it?
Oh gosh,
I can't remember the name. But
you get it from what?
Yeah, you get it from smelling cat piss. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is there a sting that I should be getting for this?
Well, we wanted to do this at PsyOp or at other times. We'll get tested, see if we have. What is it called? Damn,
I like it.
That was like a whole thing. We've talked about it so many times. Like, it's escaping me.
Yeah, you should get a new sponsor that will give us free tests for this. Send all three of us.
That would actually make my day, by the way.
I know, yeah. It will make mine too.
It's not trichinosis. I can't remember what it is.
It's a weird word. I can't remember. Anyway, we'll think of it. But the last nerdery article we have, which I was so Scott, you don't know this. You sent it to me. I was about to send it to you.
Oh wow!
So So I
wild.
don't think that's ever happened in the history of this podcast. So I am so glad that we're going to talk about this Slack, no Teams email post. So Cassie Kazakroff, I think is how you say her name, and one of our previous guests, Ben Taylor, who I guess has changed his name to Jepson, are starting their own kind of stealth startup that's doing AI stuff. But they made this post on LinkedIn the other day about, fun fact, my whole team operates in email. No Slack, no Teams. Go on, bring on your pitchforks. I see you. And so I wanted to open this up, Scott, to you. Like, yeah, I know you sent this to me. What was your perspective on? And it's a longer post here, but I think that the key to it is like they're not going to use any of these instant messaging apps. What was your reaction?
Well, I mean, they have like 5 or 6 different things that they talk about here, and they essentially use email for like quick messages, no hellos or goodbyes, just kind of using it like direct messages. The one thing that I found really interesting was the lack of Slack messages, which, as they point out, Slack has a bunch of features and it's cool. And Slack bros will tell you how cool it is and all the cool things you can do with it. As they point out, that is not a feature. That's a bug. Just because you can do a lot with it doesn't make it good. All the different like side threads and all that, that's not good for finding things. And it resonates with me. I hate email. I don't agree with the email part. I'm all about text message. Just if I didn't have any of that, I would just go straight text message. But yeah, Slack is not as good as people make it out to be.
See, I'm very much in this camp. I would love to get rid of all of instant messaging, like whether it's text or Slack or Teams or any way that you can you expect my immediate response to you. So like I was talking to somebody the other day. I made the joke like, I don't even really like email. Like if we could go back to horse and buggies carrying paper mail to each other, I would be open to that. Like that's even better. So like, but I love that they're experimenting with email only.
Send out your hate mail to Cole via the Pony Express.
And if it never gets here, I'll be none the wiser, you know?
Wait. So then where does social media fall in this?
Well, you want the real answer? Like I hate all of it. Like I don't enjoy it at all, really. I think I've figured out how to do LinkedIn after a while, but and we've talked about this a long time ago, but I've deleted all of other social media than LinkedIn. So I don't do social media at all.
Yeah.
They do touch on like a level of hell here, a circle of hell around like you can easily incorporate your emails into Asana Works. Like, oh shit. Jesus.
Great. Another thing. Yeah.
Please. Now I got to go to a different board.
And what if we created a chat bot on top of Asana that you could then query all your previous chats?
Yes. Like, man.
Get rid of all the middle management just through email.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how are they measuring their success, right? Is the intention to boost productivity, or is it their employees' well-being? Is it client satisfaction? Number of dollars raised? Right. Let's use data to tell us if they are doing it more successfully than another company that uses different technology. Like then you'll get my attention, because I think at this point it's all just talk.
I guarantee that it's like someone with a strong affinity for email that made this rule, because they say we want to optimize for retrieval, i.e. only send me attachments through email. Fair enough, because you can search for it, this sort of thing. But they do talk about, one of my favorite points is like if I have an email that's longer than 3 sentences, I got to edit it down. Like there's no reason to have an email greater than 3 sentences. Let's talk. Let's actually talk, or like put it in some sort of document.
I totally agree with that point. Like who are these people who are sending 5-paragraph long emails and texts? Like, I'm not reading this. Like I've told my team before, like if it's past a certain point, I physiologically can't read it. My brain shuts down. Like just send me shorter stuff. I promise.
Yeah. Well, I'll get it or I'll talk to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that will not work for me. I feel like what could work is like having one dedicated channel of communication, right? I think the problem, the collaboration overload, whatever, we have is like, I don't know who is going to ping me on what.
Yeah.
Right? And I know a lot of companies even have both Teams and Slack for different purposes. It's like, okay, now where do I go? And then the really urgent stuff comes through your phone on a text, and then you still have email. So like suddenly you have 4 channels,
Yeah.
and you're always behind. So I think what I can get by is like having something that's dedicated, right? Let's say I could even see like, you know what, forget email. We're just gonna go Slack. Okay. Or
Yeah.
we'll just go text, or we'll say we'll only have meetings. You know what? If someone can eliminate all meetings, and that would be great. But
Well,
a productivity killer.
Well, have you ever had this happen? I mean, I feel like you're describing it right now, Serena, where somebody goes, they send you a meeting invite, and then they send you a Slack message, and they send you an email, and then they send you a text message, and they call your phone, and it's like they're going down the modes of communication. I'm like, do you realize I'm not responding to this because I don't want to talk to you?
Right, yeah.
Like this isn't an accident, and it's like they're using every chain. If they had WhatsApp, they would use it. If they had LinkedIn messages, they would use that. Like they're gonna find some way to get in touch with you. It's like, no, that's not an accident. Stop messaging me.
I'm sorry about that, Cole.
No, that's not
Was
you.
that you?
No, Cole, I'm very hard to get a hold of.
Yeah,
I pisses Cole off.
Like when I get a message from Sky, I was like, oh, this is gonna be important. It's not that often. Oh,
Right.
Anyway. Yeah.
But I think it's absolutely true that companies need to hone in on specific communication channels and get rid of all the toys that are available in the universe. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
and maybe don't add more. Just have a rule to not add more to it.
No, we don't need any more proliferation, right? Like that. I think that's the point. Let's all go back to horses and buggies. But anyway, well, this has been fantastic, Serena. I've been looking forward to this since I was yelling at my phone the other day, and I think you're fantastic. We've known each other a long time, so thanks for getting involved here. Scott, any final words for Serena?
Hang in there, Serena. You'll figure out what you want to do eventually.
Yeah, no, if I can say something important that I forgot to say earlier.
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
One of my projects this year, yet to be announced, but I'll say first here, I'm writing a book.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
What about?
It's going to be using data and AI to create a thriving workplace. So title TBD. So I'm going to, a lot of the well-being, productivity, DEI stuff that I talked about will now finally make sense in a book form. So
can't wait.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I've been spending a lot of time writing. Fortunately, I do like writing, so it hasn't been super painful other than the just writing by myself alone, and that's kind of boring, which makes me think of like, hey, what if I could have some conversations with practitioners? So if anyone listening to this wants to contribute to some sort of case study on DEI well-being programs to make employees thrive, please reach out to me. If you, I won't ask for confidential data or anything like that, but it's definitely helpful to let the world know that they are successful case studies in implementing these programs and making a difference. So yeah, love to hear from someone.
Absolutely. Well, very relevant topic, very relevant timing, and she won't take your firstborn child, so that's good. But you've been listening to Directionally Correct, People Analytics Podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, Dr. Serena Huang. Thanks for joining us, Serena.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say a big thank you to our next patron of the podcast, Chi Fu. Thanks for your support. If you want to learn more about being a patron of the podcast, listen now. Directionally Correct is dedicated to you, our listeners, to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics. By supporting this podcast, you are helping us continue to provide valuable insights and knowledge to our listeners. Please consider becoming a patron of the podcast. You can find the link to sign up in the show notes or at patron.podbean.com/directionallycorrect. Thanks for your support.